international people. This is Louise Uwachu, broadcasting live from Vancouver. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for tuning in every week on Thursday. Today we're Thursday, March 21st, and it is 5 p.m. on the Pacific Coast. Wherever you are, welcome to the show. Thank you. So today it's going to be interesting. Those of you who have fake names, imaginary names, nicknames, and all those things, you're going to find out how important your name is and what it does for you in your life, so you could be conscious next time you call yourself Mickey or Nikki or something. And we're also going to dive into the numerologist, find out the numbers behind your name. We have an excellent guest today, an expert, Michael John Fierro. He has been working in this area on this topic for 28 years, people, 28 years. So understand that we cannot get all the answers within one show, but we're definitely going to dive into it and see what's up, what's the big deal with numerology. All right, welcome to the show. Good evening, Mr. Fierro.
Good evening.
Thank you for being on the show. Michael Fierro, author of You Know Your Name, Look Up Your Numbers.
Well,
right?
Thank you for having me. Yes.
Yes. So how did you come to numerology?
Well, in 1984, I had come back up to New Jersey from Florida for a surprise birthday party for my mother. And after dinner, all the siblings went to my brother's apartment, and my younger sister was there with us. And she started talking about this numerology stuff, which I had never heard. I had absolutely no awareness of it. And she started talking about it, and then she did a reading for me, and it was unbelievably accurate. And it really piqued my curiosity and my interest, because I've always had a good head for numbers. I was very good in math and whatnot in school. And the fact that this was a number-based modality really intrigued me. So that began my my studies. And I casually pursued it for the first couple of years. And then in the early 90s, when I was living in Connecticut, I really began to increase my studies and work with it more. And it's just been a nonstop progression ever since.
So let's tell people that numerology is a real science. This is not some imaginary things that fortune tellers just randomly tell people to get their money.
No, not at all. One of the goals of my work is to bring numerology into the mainstream and do it in a fashion where it doesn't lose its integrity. Now, numerology is all things considered, especially compared to astrology, relatively unknown. I've done, I don't know how many lectures throughout my career, and if I collectively took all of the audiences I've ever spoken to and totaled them up, I would have to say that probably 85% of the people who attended those lectures had no idea what numerology was.
Wow, I am definitely very happy to talk to you today, because I am intrigued, but I don't know exactly what numerology is. And during the research for this particular show, of course, we tried, or production team, we tried on different websites to analyze names and date of birth. And there are many, many methods. So how does one know which one is the correct method to use when calculating, for example, for a name or a date of birth?
Well, there's actually two different styles of numerology. There's the Pythagorean system, which is what I use, and then there's also a Chaldean system, which is a somewhat different approach to it. Most people who practice numerology, who work with numerology, use the Pythagorean system, which is based on the numbers 1 through 9 and the alphabet as we know it, which the Chaldean system is also, but the calculations are a little bit different. There's a lot of different approaches, and as with anything in life, it's open to interpretation. If you've ever talked to any astrologers, you could talk to a half a dozen astrologers, and you might get 6 different interpretations of the same exact thing because of the way they have been trained or studied or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. Not that any, I'm not saying any numerologist is more right or wrong. Just in my work, I've got a pretty extensive library on numerology, and in my work, I find that my system tends to be pretty accurate. I mean, I've worked with thousands of clients through the years, and I'd have to say that my accuracy rate is in the high 90 percentile.
Wow.
So I have proof, empirical proof of the work I do being correct.
Wow.
Now, as we were discussing before we came on the air, the calculation sometimes of the birth date can be misconstrued.
Yes.
And one of the things to me it is a mistake is when people add their birth date right across, where they take the number of the month, the number of the day, and the 4 digits of the year, and they add each individual thing. But as we just discussed, in doing so, you can create a master number where a master number doesn't belong, and it will create a different angle, a different interpretation of the numbers.
Mm-hmm. Now, before we get into like an example of you demonstrating numerology on a particular name and date of birth, let's get more into the science itself. What is the difference between numerology and astrology, and are they not both like the devil science according to the church?
Well, quite honestly, I don't really care what the church thinks. To me, they are sister sciences. Mm-hmm. Now, astrology is based upon planets and planetary alignments and the different houses and the different constellations. And again, I have nothing against astrology. I have a lot of friends who are astrologers. Some are extremely good, very, very, probably in the top 10 in this country. But, again, there's variables in astrology. A new planet being discovered will change things. I don't even know what it is, whether it's an asteroid or whatever. Chiron was never part of astrology until I don't know how long ago, but it now is a significant factor in an astrology reading. Where numerology is based on the numbers 1 through 9. And there's a constancy there because there's no chance that we're going to find a new number between 1 and 9. So there is this constancy, and numbers are the language of the universe. Everything that we can see, feel, touch, experience can be reduced to a mathematical equation. When they put a man on the moon, they didn't give him a map. It was a mathematical equation. The table of elements are numbered. Everything is mathematical. When they send out signals into the universe in an attempt to contact extraterrestrial life, they don't send out passages from books. They send out mathematical equations. So numbers are this constancy. And Pythagoras, who's generally considered to be the father of numerology, was one of the very first people to recognize the fact that the constancy of numbers, the appearance of numbers. In fact, one of the quotes from Pythagoras is that the human soul is at music when engaged in pure mathematics. All things accord in numbers.
Wow. I think I'm definitely going to be more and more fascinated by this domain because I was also always fascinated by the numbers. Now, where does numerology meet politics, for example? Can the numbers about the politicians tell us what to expect from their rules? We were saying earlier, for example, George W. Bush. Does his number reflect what he has been? And what about Obama? Does the number reflect what he is?
Yes. So everyone, numerology reflects who everyone is. Mm-hmm. Now, back, I think it was early 2011. I was doing a radio program, and at that time, I forecast that Obama would win again in 2012. And there was other people within some of the esoteric fields who were saying that he wasn't going to win. And I said early on that he was going to, and I never wavered from that point. I like political debate and stuff, and every time I would get into a political debate with someone about the election, I would hold fast to to my position, and I never let people know that I was basing my part of the argument on numerology. I would just have a discussion, and I kept saying to people, "He's going to win. You're going to be you better get yourself ready for the fact and some disappointment because your guy's going to lose." And I wrote an essay, which actually is in my blog on my website, after the election, which laid out the different components and the different facts about the election, numerologically based upon Obama's chart and Romney's chart.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, in my book, You Know Your Name, Look Up Your Numbers, the sample chart that I use is Barack Obama. And I didn't include him for political reasons. I included him because he's a significant personality in the world.
Uh-huh.
And he's someone that, love him or hate him, people know who he is. So my interpretation, my description of Barack Obama in my book has no political overtone. This is who he is as a man.
So as a man, as an individual, is he the kind of man who promises peace and then delivers war?
Well, there's a part of him that's an idealist. You know, sadly today in the world of politics, especially in America, there's reality and there's political reality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very sad that, it's always interesting to watch a political campaign and to watch people make a lot of promises to get elected and then never follow through on those promises. As a practical individual, I view that because of the fact that when they get into the job, they realize, it was easy to say it, but it's not easy to do it. In his heart of hearts, the soul urge energy of Barack Obama is a 9. That makes him an idealist. He's a person who's in his heart of hearts, he's a very philanthropic, very humanitarian, very altruistic individual who deeply cares about the good of people. But again, the practical realities of the political climate in the United States today, that it doesn't last long because of what you're up against.
I see. So, which means that you may know your destiny or your purpose or your qualities through the number, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to influence you to live up to it?
It will influence you, but again, sadly, in this world today, until we can get the consciousness level of the world raised up a few notches, we're still going to have to deal with this very ugly part of the human condition.
So what does that mean?
I believe that given, if all things being equal, if there was truly a desire upon the part of politicians to lead and to govern and to do the right thing for people as opposed to for political reasons or financial backing, I think we would see an entirely different system and entirely different outcomes.
So
but again,
your number,
Go on.
Your number is your potential, but it's not written down that you're going to be what it says it is.
Well, it takes work.
Mm-hmm.
Every number has a positive and negative side.
Mm-hmm.
The more human you are, the more you will lean to the negative energy and vibration of a number. The more spiritual you are, the more you will be on the positive side. Now, most people tend to be a mix of the two.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the political thing is it's a very, very strange dynamic in the world because, again, it's gotten so far away from what it was meant to be. and it's morphed into this self-serving, plutocratic, corporate-driven entity that really doesn't have the mindset of the common good as a component.
I see. Now let's leave the politician, because maybe the politician is understandable that they don't have anything spiritual. Let's go to the religious people. For example, the new Pope, which is nominated on the 13th of March in 2013. Some people say that's a significant, those are significant numbers. And then also the month of March. Apparently, the month of March is the month in which NATO and the other world powers of the world, have started the most wars on this planet, because supposedly that March is related to Mars, which is the war planet. So what kind of connections do you see there?
Well, the Catholic Church, again, another very bizarre entity.
To say the least.
And it's interesting because Pope Francis was elected on, as you said, the 13th of March, which is a 13-4 universal day. Now, in numerology, a 13-4 is a vibration of change, release, and transformation. Even though 13 has a superstitious connotation to it, it truly isn't. Actually, it's a very powerful number. And with the 13, we can expect changes that will bring an end to conditions that no longer serve a useful purpose. Rigid thought patterns can be altered. Ideas can be shattered. There's a representation of death with 13, but it's not death in the sense of finality as it is so much in the transitional energy that comes about with a death. So the possibility exists that the Catholic Church will begin to change and transform.
Could it also mean that the Catholic Church will die?
There's been predictions for a very, very long time that the Catholic Church will eventually come to an end. Now, some of those predictions have already been proven wrong, but I think it'll die in the sense that, again, there will be this transformation about it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Catholic Church, there's a lot of negativity there. There's a lot of scandal. There's a lot of chicanery. It's a very, very closed society, so to speak. So we really don't know the full truth. We know what the Church will tell us, but we really don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Now, will Pope Francis make a difference? Possibly. Because there's two things in this chart that kind of counter one another.
Mm.
The first thing is that in Pope Francis, his life path, he's got a 3 life path, but his first challenge is a 5. Mm-hmm. Now, the challenges come out of the birth date. These are the only time that in numerology where the mathematical process is subtraction as opposed to addition. And the challenges come out of the birth path. They are calculated underneath the birth path, so they affect the really human and materialistic portion of a life. Mm-hmm. And Pope Francis's first challenge is a 5. Now, one of the indications in my work, and this has been proven more often than not, is that a 5 challenge in the first position can be an indication of sexual abuse or molestation when one is young.
Mm-hmm.
So what we may have here is an individual who suffered the very thing that the Catholic Church is most known for.
Wow.
And if that is in fact the case, then there could be a strong desire upon the part of the Pope to make that change and eliminate that from the culture of the church.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the counter to that is the fact that in the spelling of the Pope's real name, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, he has no 5s in the spelling of his name. Now, 5 in numerology is one of the 3 most commonly occurring numbers in the spelling of a name. And 5 in numerology represents change, adaptability, curiosity, transition, movement, adventure. It's a representation of the human condition.
Mm-hmm.
The average number of times that 5 appears in the average spelling of the average name is 3 to 4 times. And the Pope has no 5s in the spelling of his name. So what that means is change is a difficult thing for him. It's not something that comes easily or naturally. So as an individual, he may have a difficult time with change. Now, whether or not that translates into his performance and activities as a pope remains to be seen. Because if that condition exists and overrides the other part of the religious part that needs to change, then he may hold back. But if he steps out of his human condition and more into his role as a spiritual and religious leader and recognizes the fact that that change must be made, then it's conceivable that it'll happen.
I see. You've told me earlier that the Vatican has the largest library in the world when it comes to the knowledge of this science and this esoteric ancient knowledge that is hidden from humanity that can help humanity. So do you think they're going to...
Yeah, that's my understanding. Now, I can't prove that fact, but let's face it, the Vatican has an incredibly large library. And, you know, access to it is limited. But I have to believe that somewhere in that vast store of knowledge and books are some very esoteric books. And as we were discussing, you know, the fact that, you know, let's face it, the Bible as we know it today has been rewritten through time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been rewritten by man to reinforce man's position of power as a religious entity.
Mm-hmm.
And the real truth of the biblical stories, you know, a lot of them don't make sense. You can't read the Bible literally and say, oh, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. But if you read the Bible metaphysically, I had the great pleasure and honor and of studying with a gentleman here in New Jersey for a couple of years. His name is Bill Donahue. And his course is called Hidden Meanings. And he taught the Bible. Now, this is a guy who was raised a Catholic and who was a reverend for many, many years. But he taught an interpretation of the Bible based upon astrology, astronomy, the physiology of the human body, physics, and language. And he would take passages of the Bible and then show you in scientific literature or modern-day science happenings or Gray's Anatomy or astrology or astronomy the exact same story.
Wow,
so
now that's a class that I would love to attend.
So you have to kind of weed through the biblical stories to really get to the bottom. What does this really mean? And I'll give you a real quick example. We're a little off track here with the numerology, but I go wherever the conversation takes me. You take the story of Adam and Eve. Now, how was Eve created?
By the other from the man, according to
Right. God removed the rib of Adam and created Eve.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's a story that kind of doesn't make a lot of sense, really. But if you take that story and change your angle of perspective in interpreting it, then you could reword that story to say that, in essence, what God did was split the atom.
Wow. Which the atom is Adam.
Right. And then what you have is physics. Because when you split an atom, it continually creates energy. Mm-hmm. So the beginning here could have been, it was physics. You know, it's interesting that the first man was named Adam. He wasn't George or Moses or Harry. He was Adam. And God split the atom. Mm-hmm. And then there's multiple references throughout the Bible to what can only be perceived as the meditative state.
Mm-hmm.
There's the passage in Matthew, if thine eye be single, thy body shall fill with light. Well, anyone who meditates knows that one of the things you do is concentrate on your third eye. And if that eye fills with light, then you move into a different consciousness, a different state. And there's the story in Genesis about Jacob going out to see God, to meet God face to face. And when he came back to his tribe, the biblical passage says, and Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. And then in Revelations it says, and they shall see his face, and his name shall be in their foreheads.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not too hard to consider the fact that what the Bible is talking about is the meditative state. It's a consciousness. Jesus was a consciousness. Even the story of Jesus is, again, you read it in a different way. It's a different story.
Mm-hmm.
It's the crucifixion. You know, I don't know how well versed you are in the Bible.
I am very well versed. I was forced to go to church my entire childhood.
Okay, well, where did the crucifixion take place?
In Gethsemane?
Well, no, Golgotha.
Oh yeah, Golgotha, yeah.
And in the Bible, it tells you that Golgotha was the place of the skulls.
Mm-hmm.
And in Golgotha, the crucifixion actually took place on Mount Calvary.
Mm-hmm.
Calvary comes from the same root word as the word cranium.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, you already have two references to the head. And then Jesus was on the cross, and he was surrounded by two thieves, one on the left, one on the right. And the thief on the left turned to Jesus and said, if you're the Son of God, what are we doing up here? He was a non-believer. The thinking part of the brain, the logical human part of the brain, doesn't believe anything. The thief on the right, representing the right side of the brain, looked to Jesus and said, I know you, I believe in you, I love you, I want to be with you. Because the intuitive part of our brain understands the consciousness. And Jesus turned to the thief on the right and said, I will be with you in paradise. And if you trace the word paradise way back to its root, the actual original meaning of the word was enclosure. So you have skull, cranium, enclosure, left side no, right side yes. So could it have been the separation of spirit from body to move into the higher consciousness?
Wow, I want you to teach me the Bible now. That's very, very enlightening. Brand new way of seeing it. Left side of the brain, right side of the brain. Wow.
Right, because again, when you read the stories in the Bible, and again, Bill is just brilliant with this, and I'll send you his website. But you take, and I believe it's in Matthew, when someone comes up to Jesus and says, how will we know when you return? How will we recognize that fact? And Jesus' response was, look for the man carrying the pitcher of water who ascends the staircase to the upper room. Do you know the man carrying the pitcher of water, what that represents?
I've read about it, but I will let you tell the audience.
Okay. That's the picture that's associated with the sign of Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
And the upper room, to ascend the staircase, is to move up the staircase of Kundalini energy to the upper room, which is the higher consciousness. So in essence, what the answer was, in the age of Aquarius, I will return because you will move into a higher consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Which pretty much puts it in the time frame we're in now.
Which is coincides with which coincides with what you were saying earlier. This Pope, which is chosen on the 13th in March in 2013, the idea of change. So is that does that signal the change of ages and times?
It's conceivable that it will. Time will tell. You know, again, the church is as political as the United States is. So a lot is going to be determined by, can one man exert enough power and influence over a political body to make that change?
Mm-hmm. Wow, this is so interesting. Now, coming back to the names and the numbers and what they mean, what about when countries and territories change names? For example, we're in America, but this land used to be called something else. I'm in Canada. This land used to be called something else. What does that do to a territory when you rename a territory?
Well, the thing is, I mean, really, did America really have a name before we showed up? You know, America and Canada were territories filled with tribes who each had their own particular country, so to speak, within this giant body of land.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's interesting, the United States of America, its birth date is July 4th, 1776. Well, July 4th, 1776 gives the United States a 5 life path. A 5 life path would be one of freedom. Freedom is the one word that's associated more than any with the United States. And we have to give consideration to the fact that our founding fathers were a collective collection of Masons and astrologers and perhaps numerologists who knew things of the esoteric plane and the metaphysical plane. And I do believe that they incorporated that into a lot of what they did.
Mm-hmm. Because even the date of birth itself is decided.
Right. Exactly. And
this is surprisingly July. The month of July is the month that a lot of nations celebrate their independence. The French had their revolutions in July. They celebrate the 14th of July. A lot of African countries celebrate their independence in July. Is this all manipulated to fall at the same time? People don't know.
Well, France may celebrate but see, the birth of France, I don't know when that was.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was certainly long before the French Revolution. France has been a country for thousands of years. Mm-hmm. So you'd really have to look at France, you'd really have to dig down and find the date that France was formed as a nation.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much when did they have their revolution, because they were still France.
Mm-hmm. So what about like these countries in Africa, for example, when a country changes from their name, one particular country, the Congo, used to be Zaire, Zaire, and now they changed back to Congo. What does that do to the spirituality of the land?
Well, again, without knowing the date of that the name change came about, because in that context, I mean, Zaire would certainly mean one thing. That would be That'd be a 685. And is it Congo, Congo Republic?
The Republic of Congo, yeah.
Okay.
The Democratic Republic of Congo.
Okay, well, that's a lot of letters for me to do real quick in my head. But I'm going to venture that it's different from the 685 that Zaire would be.
Mm-hmm.
So the vibration of the entity certainly would have changed. And again, Zaire was formed on a particular day in a particular year. The Democratic Republic of Congo was formed on a different date in a different year. So without having those particulars, it would be difficult for me to really give a cogent answer
I see.
to explain any difference.
What about an individual? Let's say an individual, a lot of immigrants, they come to Canada and America and their names are too big, and then they change them to something short and sweet for the American audience.
Thankfully, we don't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was certainly in the 19th century, 20th century. That was certainly the case.
Mm-hmm.
The great example, obviously, is The Godfather, when Vito came to this country and they gave him the last name of the town that he was from.
Yeah.
But in my work, I put a great deal of emphasis, and I'm very particular about this. When I do a session with someone, I always ask for your name the way it is spelled on your birth certificate. And I'm very direct about that, the way it is spelled on your birth certificate, because if your name is misspelled, that's what I read. If you are an individual whom, when you were born, your parents didn't quite know what to name you, and the certificate had to be filled out, and your birth certificate says Baby Girl Jones or Female Johnson, that's what I read.
Wow. That's interesting.
And you'd be amazed at how accurately that depicts a particular individual. And
now,
while we're on this topic of names,
yes,
I am a huge advocate of people not changing their name.
Mm-hmm.
Because before you were born, your soul chose your name, your birth date, your family of origin, because it knew who you needed to be and what you needed to do before it got here. Now, there's many instances where a woman gets pregnant and she immediately knows what she's going to name the baby. And she's unwavering with that. And when the baby is born, it is given the name that she knew as soon as she became pregnant, because the soul connection was made at that point and never changed. Then there's other instances, and I'm sure you must know at least one individual, I'm sure people in the audience know at least one individual who got pregnant, and they knew it was going to be a girl, and they said it was a girl, and we're going to name her Mary Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
And the baby is born, and suddenly she becomes Karen Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
I use myself as an example with this. Before I was born, and this was back in the day when they couldn't say whether it was going to be a boy or a girl, my parents told everyone that if I was a boy, my name was going to be James Allen Fierro. And my name was James Allen Fierro until the moment the nurse walked into the room and asked my mother, what's the baby's name? And she answered, Michael John.
Uh-huh.
Because Michael John is who I needed to be in this lifetime. So because your soul chooses your name, there's a reason for it. And whether you like your name or not, you need to get used to it. Because when you change your name, it's the equivalent of dressing up for Halloween. You're putting on a costume. You're masquerading. You can very well be whomever you are, but when you dress up for Halloween and you become Cinderella or Snow White or whomever, people see you as Cinderella, but inside that costume is you.
Mm-hmm.
And you never go away.
Mm-hmm.
So when you change your name through marriage, let's say, you have now taken on an identity that's not you. You are playing the role of someone. There's a great quote in my book from Erica Jong. You know who she was, Fear of Flying?
Yes, I've heard about her, but I haven't read anything.
Well, this is interesting. This is a quote from her. When we take away the right to an individual name, we symbolically take away the right to be an individual. Immigration officials did this to refugees. Husbands routinely do it to wives. So when you change your name, when you give up your name in marriage, you are giving up your identity. You are becoming someone else. Now, I'm opposed to that idea for two reasons. One, it's a very ancient custom that is very outdated. Originally, the custom of giving the wife the husband's name was so the husband could tell the villagers that she was his property, just like his cattle and his goats and his horses.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, when you do that, again, you're changing your identity. And because your surname is the karma of your family of origin, when you came into this plane, your soul knew that you were going to be equipped to handle that karma. It's part of your existence. You marry me and you take my last name, you're now taking on the karma of my family. You have no idea what it is, and you're hardly equipped to handle it. And it's one of the reasons that why women have difficulty when they get married. Because something shifts. This energy shift, this vibrational shift happens. And if you're a female who has gotten married multiple times and started out as Susan Jones and then became Susan Johnson and then got divorced and became Susan Brown and then got divorced again and became Susan Greenfield, that's a lot of costumes.
Wow.
I had a very dear friend of mine. She passed away a few years back. But when I met her in the early 90s, she was already on her fourth name. Not so much through marriage, but her mother had changed the family name and all of this. And my dear friend was a very creative, intelligent, witty, funny. She had everything going for her. But she was just so frenetic because she had all these different identities layered on top of her. And I told her all the time, Erin, you need to go back to your birth name. You need to reconnect with yourself. And when you do that, you can go a long way to grounding yourself again and then moving forward. You know, sadly, although this is starting to change, a lot of people get married young. And, you know, your first point of growing up, numerologically, it's the end of your first cycle. Astrologically, it's your first Saturn return. Those two periods of times are very closely aligned. So that's really when you first start to grow up. It's in your late 20s. If you get married before that period of time, you really haven't connected with yourself yet. You're not really grounded in yourself yet. And now here you are all of a sudden becoming someone else. Of course you're going to have a difficult time. So my advice to all the women listening is if you're going to get married, keep your maiden name. Don't hyphenate. Don't do anything. Keep your maiden name. And if you are currently married and going through a divorce, be sure that part of your divorce is that you take your maiden name back.
Wow, great advice, because I had just recently read something about that and how it's disturbing, even in many other cultures, how it's just disturbing and how it was actually used for property purposes, really. It has nothing to do with the spiritual, and the reason why the government and the administration encourages it is just for administration purposes. They don't really care about your spiritual life.
Right. It's a true story. About, 10 years ago or so, maybe a little bit longer, I used to have a company. We made aromatherapy products and herbal pillows and stuff, and I was doing my numerology and stuff. And we were doing a show once, and a woman came up to the booth, and I started talking to her. And whenever possible, I bring numerology into a conversation, even with strangers. And in talking to this woman, she related some of her life story. She'd been married multiple times. Her life was a living, breathing soap opera.
Wow.
And I think she'd been married 3 times, so her name kept changing. And she had even changed her first name.
Oh, no.
So she came to me for a session. And a typical session with me is an hour. And after an hour of speaking with her, when she left, I said to myself, this is a lost soul. I really didn't have great confidence that she would be able to pull it together. So it was with great surprise. A couple of months later, I came home. In fact, this was so long ago, I had actually had an answering machine. I came home, and there was a message on my answering machine saying, "Hi, Michael. This is so-and-so. I'm calling to invite you to lunch. I just wanted to tell you that I'm in the final stages of going to court, taking back my birth name, and I want to take you to lunch to thank you." So when I didn't even know who it was, so I always keep a file on all my clients. So I went and I pulled the file, and when I pulled the file out, because the file, I do birth names, I don't do assumed names. When I pulled the file out, her business card fell out, and then I realized who it was.
Mm-hmm.
So I met her for lunch, and Louise, when I tell you, she even looked different.
Wow.
The transformation in this woman was so profound that it shocked even me.
Wow.
And she did what I had advised her to do and had reclaimed herself and reclaimed her life.
Wow, this is so amazing, because when you say this, I think about historically, for example, the people that they call African American in the United States, whose names have been changed for enslavement purposes. And now today, when we look on television and we see Black America, and we are under the impression that they are lost, do you think their names have to do something with it?
Sure, because they now, you know, the second and third generation African Americans in this country, the descendants of the slaves who took on the surname of their owner.
Mm-hmm.
Those descendants, that's their name, so it really doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
The name change for the immigrant only affected the particular immigrant. If an Italian came into this country and his name was, Antonio Scaramucci, and when he came to Ellis Island, they changed it to Antonio Rome.
Mm-hmm.
It affected him, the name change, but from that point on, all of his descendants would have been with the surname Rome, so it isn't a factor there.
I see. So the soul doesn't get confused if it comes into this world and you've changed your name from an African name to an American enslaver's name, and you're now on the third generation?
Correct.
Aha. I see. So because we're approaching towards the end, let's end the show with an example, a concrete example of my name and my date of birth, but let's not tell the people my date of birth. I don't want to receive too many birthday gifts.
Why not? You're a lovely woman. You should receive as many gifts as you can.
Another way of saying now I want to say my age on the air.
Oh, okay. I'll trade my age for yours any day.
All right. So what does my name say about me? What does my date of birth say about me? And I have never changed my name. I've added on to my name, but I haven't really changed it. That's the name that I was born with.
Okay. Well, Louise, you have a 6th life path.
Uh-huh.
Now, 6 in numerology is about service to others. It has a great deal to do with home and family. It's the number of the healthcare worker, the counselor, the teacher. Again, it's the key phrase is of service to others. So your life is very much one of service to others. Home and family is very important to you. Do you like to garden?
I love my garden, but if I had a gardener, that would be better, not me touching the soil. I don't
Okay,
really.
but that's actually you have a natural proclivity for that, and it's
Uh-huh.
actually pretty much it could be a Zen-like experience for you. You have a real connection to Earth, to Mother Earth,
Uh-huh.
so that's a good exercise for you. So again, you're a person who cares about others. You're of service to others. Your expression, which is the total of all the letters in your name, is also at 6. So you have a double thing there. Now, one of the things that happens is you have a tendency to attract people with problems. You're the problem solver. You're the
I
person
am
that
the
people,
problem solver. People
right.
always call me to solve all their problems. I could spend an entire day solving people's problems.
Right. So you're the person that people come to with their difficulties and with their issues. And there's a part of you that loves doing it for people, but you need to be very, very careful. And it's very important for you that you create some boundaries because people will take advantage of you. And you have a very strong probability then of devolving into codependent relationships with people.
Mhm.
So you need to be very strident about establishing those boundaries. Okay, Susie, you come to me every week with the same problem. I consistently give you advice. You never listen to what I tell you, but you keep coming back. Enough is enough. You really have to do that. And it's also very important for you, Louise, that you have someone or something in your life that reciprocates in kind. It's important that you have someone in your life that takes care of you. Because otherwise you're going to feel very put upon. You're going to get angry and resentful and frustrated, and it will get very ugly. Again, it will devolve into codependency, so you need to be careful. So you have a very strong 6 energy. 2 of your major numbers are 6s. So you can also be very stubborn.
Yes, I can.
And very opinionated.
That's why I'm on radio.
Right. And you like to dig your heels in on stuff. So you may need to exercise a little more latitude with people. You need to allow people to express their ideas and their opinions and not make them wrong for having something that may be counter to your beliefs. Okay? You have a 3 soul urge, which comes out of the vowels in your name. You have a 3 image, which comes out of the consonants in your name. And you have 4 3s in the spelling of your name. So you're extremely creative.
Yes, I am.
You have a gift with words, written or spoken. Now, you've got a great deal of emotion.
Supposedly.
You can be very, very emotional. And you need to make sure that you have a channel for those emotions. Again, a creative outlook, a creative pursuit for you is almost imperative, so you have some way to channel that into something. Again, great deal of emotional energy. People who know you will know that when you get emotional, you have a tendency to just kind of chatter.
Okay. So does that is that why I'm on radio and doing television?
Radio is a perfect venue for you because 3 is about the voice. Again, it's words written or spoken. It's creative expression. It's creative self-expression. So you need that outlet. So, yeah, the radio or anything where you get to express yourself is somewhat of a natural thing for you. There's a part of you that's an entertainer. There's a part of you that's very much the life of the party. You attract people. You're charming. You're elegant. You're gracious. You're funny. You may not take things too seriously at times.
Yeah, life is too short.
Right. Now, you do have a 4 challenge in the lifetime position, so control issues may be a bit of an issue for you.
I like to control, or I don't like to control?
Well, both. One is you may be controlling with others, and conversely, you may attract to you people who are controlling. So you get into these battle of wills at times. And one of the things, when it comes to control issues, my mantra is this: the best control is no control. You need to let it be. You can no more make me or force me to do your bidding than I can make you do my bidding. So you need to come to an agreement with people. Okay, I may not agree with what you're doing, but fine. You live and learn by your own mistakes. Because hanging on to that kind of control will manifest itself physically in things like arthritis. And in the long term, a disease like Parkinson's. People who are very controlling tend to end up with physical maladies that in which they lose control.
I think it's that idea of knowing the solution. Like, I always know the solution to problems, everyone's problems,
okay,
my
but not
problems.
everybody wants to hear them. I know I have a lot of solutions also, and I believe me, at times I can be a little very strong in voicing what I believe to be right for people. I have very strong perception on things, and I have a great ability to see deep into situations. There's a problem solver, but I've also learned that people don't really want to hear it.
So I should see a problem and just let it go, and
if
not
it doesn't directly affect you, yeah, yes, you'll be much better off. Believe me. If someone wants your opinion, if someone wants your help, let them ask. To just offer, because if you keep offering it up, again, Louise, you devolve into codependency. People are just going to lay back and say, "Oh, I don't have to worry about this. Louise will handle it for me."
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, but when I'm the executive producer, for example, of a radio show or a TV show, everything depends on me. How can I manage that?
That's a whole different thing. That's your job.
Oh. Okay.
But even in that venue, you need to learn to delegate. What's the sense of having a team of people if you're going to do it all? You could save yourself a lot of money.
What about feeling bad for firing people? Because I'm thinking this person has a family, this person has a life, this person, I know this person, I feel bad for this person. Then, you can't really go hard on people, throw them out, or tell them don't come back to me and things like that.
No, that's true, but, I've been a businessman most of my life. I was in the restaurant industry for 30 years. And my mantra in that was business is business. And I very much create a divide between business and personal. My ex-wife, when I lived in Florida, I was part owner and manager and executive chef of a very big restaurant, and I gave my wife at the time a job as a hostess. And my rule was simple. I don't care who you are. Business is business. You're working for me. There are rules and regulations that need to be followed. Don't think because you're related to me that you're immune. And my wife thought that she could take advantage of the situation, and I fired her.
And then she fired you from the house?
Well, no, that was something else. But it certainly got the attention of my staff because they realized, well, geez, if he can fire his wife, he's certainly not going to put up a lot of crap with me. So, again, you need to make that delineation of business is business.
Wow.
You give people an opportunity to fail, perhaps. You give them a chance or two, but to me personally, I don't suffer fools gladly. And if someone comes to me looking for a job and tells me in the interview process that they can do ABC, then I expect them to be able to do ABC. I didn't go in and drag them off the street to come to work for me. They came in and asked me for a job.
I see. Those are really great advice. So if you had to advise me one thing, what's the great thing about having my numbers or my name or my destiny? What am I to do with it?
Well, do what you can to help others. Do what you can to be of service to others. Again, but do it with boundaries. Do not let people take advantage of you. Do not let people become codependent on your taking care of their problems and issues. And use your creative talents and abilities to move forward in your career. You're currently in a 6 personal year, so there may be a higher degree of taking care of someone this year. You may very well be in a situation where there's a family member or someone that you have to literally take care of. Do it with love and grace and acceptance. But again, always make sure that you leave time for yourself.
Okay, people, it's not me. It's Michael John Fierro who said that I should get away from all of you.
Now, don't put it that way.
And take care of me and not you.
Well, see, but by taking care of yourself, you will be taking care of them.
Okay. All right. But I do like taking care of people, so if they take advantage...
No, that's fine. But again, make sure that someone's taking care of you at the same time.
I thought I was a nice person, and you're telling me I'm not a nice person? This is just in my number?
You can go back and listen to this tape. Not once did I say you're not a nice person.
I know. But I thought this is not about my name or my number, but you just told me now that in my numbers, it says that I'm a person who takes care of people, which is what I do. So I thought I was just being nice.
I'm not saying to not do that, Louise. All I'm saying is to be very careful that you are not taken advantage of in that regard. There are people out there that will sit back and let you do everything for them. They will let you handle their problems. They will not live their life because you're living it for them.
Oh, I'm breaking up with you people. Michael John Fierro, thank you.
Can I get in a quick commercial here?
Yes, you can. Thank you so much. The book is titled You Know Your Name, Look Up Your Numbers, and please tell people where they can find you, how they can get in touch, and how they can contact you.
All right. My website is michaeljohnfierro.com. That's Fierro, F-I-E-R-R-O. On my website, there's plenty of information about me. You can book a session through my website. You can purchase my book through my website. And actually, if you go to my website and click on the link for Books by Michael, you can purchase a signed copy of my book.
Yes.
For $20.75, which includes the shipping, and you will get a signed copy of the book. You will get a 1-hour DVD of a TV interview I did, and I will do your chart calculation for you.
Yes. People, take up the offer. MichaelJohnFierro.com. This is a very nice website. I really like the colors that you have on there, the brown and the orange. Very nice.
Thank you. And I can also be found on Facebook, Michael John Fierro _numerologist. And my book also has a page, You Know Your Name, Look Up Your Numbers.
Yes. So Michael John Fierro, numerologist, life coach, spiritual coach, mentor, lecturer, and author. What can we expect from you for the future?
From me?
Mm-hmm.
Great things, I certainly hope. Looking to put together a book tour.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I would be out on the road already, but I had some vehicle things, and I got to get some things in order before that happens. So perhaps late spring, early summer, I may do a book tour on the East Coast. My intention is eventually to get out west, out through Arizona, California, up the West Coast. If you live in an area that has a metaphysical New Age center or a bookstore, independent bookstore, that has authors come in for lectures and book signings, please drop me a line. I'll put them on my list. And if I can get enough bookings in a particular area, then I will certainly put it onto my itinerary.
Yes. Thank you so much, Michael John Fierro. It's been very, very inspiring and educating, and I am definitely breaking up with all the people who I've been solving problems for.
Okay. Do it gently.
I will be very... You said I was charming. You know.
Yes, you are.
I will be my charming self. They wouldn't even see that I broke up with them.
Okay, so it was a pleasure being on your program. Thank you for having me. If you ever want me to come back where we take some callers and whatnot, please let me know.
Yes, next time we will definitely take in some callers and improvise.
Okay, and hook up with me on Facebook.
Yes. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you. You have a wonderful evening, and thank you all who are listening.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, my international people, for being with us. Thank Michael John Fierro. Wow, that was so great. Now, the book is called Know Your Name, Look Up Your Numbers. And the website is Michael John Fierro. Michael, Michael, John, John, Fierro, FIERRO.com. Michael John Fierro. So it's been really great. Thank you for tuning in, and we will be back next week. In the meantime, I encourage you to get the book, search your name, search your numbers, and get rid of a couple of people in your life. All right, my international people, thank you. I'm not giving up most of you. Don't worry, okay? We're still together. All right, I love you very much. Have a great evening. Louise Wachu from Vancouver. Murakoze murakarama mugirimana murotimana muraharyana.